A friend of mine moved to Georgia last year. Not the American state, the country, between Europe and Asia, sitting on the edge of the Caucasus Mountains. She was earning $1,200 a month freelancing. In London, that was survival mode. Instant noodles, skipping social events because she couldn't afford them. Watching her savings go nowhere for 3 years straight. 6 weeks after she landed in Tbilisi, she sent me a voice note. She had a private room in a beautiful apartment for $180 a month. She was eating at proper sit-down restaurants every single day. She joined a gym, taken a weekend trip to the mountains, had money left over.
Same income, completely different life. That conversation sent me down a months-long research spiral, and I kept finding the same pattern. 4 countries in Europe where $1,000 a month doesn't just cover the basics. It actually buys you something that feels, without exaggeration, like a luxury lifestyle. A real apartment, good food, a social life, travel, savings. Today, we're covering all 4. Not just the cheap rent, but exactly why each of these countries makes financial sense in 2026, and what people are actually doing there right now. Let's get into it.
Country 1. Georgia. Most people's first hour in Tbilisi follows the same script. You step out of the cab in the old town. You look up and see wooden balconies hanging over narrow cobblestone streets, carved with intricate patterns that look like they belong in a fairy tale. There's a fortress on the hill above the city. There are sulfuric hot springs literally built into the neighborhood below it. The name Tbilisi actually means warm place in Georgian, named after those springs. And then you sit down somewhere and order food, and the menu prices make you look twice. A full traditional Georgian meal, kinkali dumplings, bread fresh from a clay oven, a salad, a glass of local wine, costs somewhere between $4 and $8. Not street food, a proper sit-down meal with table service. A coffee in a good cafe runs $1.50. A beer is under $2.
A 1-bedroom apartment in a nice neighborhood of Tbilisi rents for $300 to $500 a month. For $600, you're looking at something genuinely beautiful. High ceilings, exposed brick, the kind of apartment that would cost $3,000 in a Western city and gets photographed for interior design accounts. Now run the math on $1,000 a month in Tbilisi. $400 rent, $200 on food, and that means eating at restaurants almost every day, not cooking everything at home. $50 on transport, $50 on a gym membership, a phone plan, occasional coffee shops. That's $700. You have $300 left every month. And Georgia has something that almost no other country on this list can match: a tax system deliberately designed to attract remote workers and entrepreneurs. Foreign-sourced income for many self-employed individuals is taxed at 1% under certain structures. Not 20%, not 35%, 1%. The Georgian government made a specific decision to position the country as a destination for location-independent earners, and the policy reflects that with unusual clarity.
The country is also genuinely safe, consistently ranks among the lowest crime rates in the region. The food culture is extraordinary. Georgians treat hospitality as a near-religious practice, and sharing a table with locals here is an experience that travel writers consistently struggle to describe in ways that don't sound exaggerated. The digital infrastructure has improved dramatically over the past 5 years. Co-working spaces in Tbilisi are modern, well-equipped, and filled with a genuinely international community of remote workers who all discovered the same thing your friend did: that $1,000 here doesn't feel like $1,000 anywhere else. The honest thing to say is this: Georgia is not inside the European Union, but it sits at the border of Europe geographically and culturally. And for the specific type of person who values financial leverage, quality of life, and a city that still has the energy of somewhere genuinely undiscovered, Tbilisi in 2026 is that rare thing, a place that rewards arriving early. Rent, $300 to $500 per month. Full restaurant meal, $4 to $8. Coffee, $1.50. Estimated $1,000 per month lifestyle? Check. Comfortable with savings.
Country 2. Albania. Albania has a reputation problem, and that reputation problem is, right now, one of the best financial opportunities in Europe. Most people's mental image of Albania is formed by things they half remember from news coverage that's 15 years out of date. What they don't picture is a country with one of the most dramatic coastlines on the Mediterranean, the Albanian Riviera, a 170-kilometer stretch of turquoise water, white sand beaches, and cliffside villages that looks almost indistinguishable from the Greek islands 20 kilometers across the water. Except the prices are a different planet. Saranda sits at the southern tip of Albania, directly across from Corfu. It has the same water, the same climate, the same views. A one-bedroom apartment in Saranda rents for $300 to $450 a month. Across the water in Corfu, the same apartment is $900 to $1,400. The sea is the same color. The sun is the same temperature. The price difference is not a rounding error. It's a completely different financial reality.
Tirana, the capital, has transformed at a pace that genuinely surprises people who haven't visited recently. The city has invested heavily in public spaces, parks, and cultural infrastructure over the past decade. There are proper coffee shops, co-working spaces, restaurants serving food from every corner of the world, and a nightlife scene that's been quietly building a reputation across the Balkans. A one-bedroom apartment in a good area of Tirana runs $350 to $550 a month. The food costs are legitimately hard to believe until you experience them firsthand. A full meal at a traditional restaurant, and Albanian food is genuinely excellent, heavily influenced by both Italian and Mediterranean traditions, costs $5 to $10. Fresh produce at local markets is so affordable that expats consistently report spending $100 to $150 a month on groceries while eating extremely well. Here's what makes Albania particularly compelling in 2026 specifically. The country is in active EU accession negotiations. That process, when it concludes, will almost certainly trigger the same economic transformation that happened to Bulgaria, Romania, and Croatia after they joined. Property prices rise, costs increase, the international attention arrives, and the window of affordability closes. The people moving to Albania right now are doing so with full awareness of that timeline. They're not just here for the cheap rent. They're here because they understand what the cheap rent means when the context changes.
Albania also runs on the euro informally in many transactions and has a straightforward residency process for foreigners. English is widely spoken among younger Albanians, particularly in the cities and tourist areas, and it is genuinely one of the safest countries in the Balkans, a fact that consistently surprises people whose expectations were set by outdated information. $1,000 a month in Albania doesn't feel like budget living. It feels like exactly the kind of life people in Western Europe are working 60-hour weeks to afford and never quite reaching. Rent, $300 to $550 per month. Full restaurant meal, $5 to $10. Monthly groceries, $100 $150. Estimated $1,000 a month lifestyle? Check. Mediterranean luxury on a budget.
Country 3. North Macedonia. There is a specific disorientation that people describe when they first arrive in North Macedonia. You're walking through the old bazaar in Skopje or along the shore of Lake Ohrid, and everything around you is visually telling you that you're somewhere expensive. The lake is one of the most stunning in Europe, ancient, impossibly blue, ringed by mountains and medieval churches. The old stone streets look like somewhere in Croatia or southern Italy. The food looks like it belongs in a restaurant that charges European prices. Then the bill arrives. Coffee for $1.20, a full traditional meal for $6 or $7. And for a moment, something in your brain genuinely doesn't compute.
Financially, people who've spent time across this region consistently describe North Macedonia as feeling like Europe 15 years ago. that is not hyperbole. Modern apartments in Skopje and Ohrid rent for €250 to €450 a month, and not Soviet-era block apartments, but genuinely modern, well-appointed living spaces that would pass without comment in any German or French city at 3 times the price. What makes North Macedonia different from the other countries on this list is a specific quality that's hard to quantify, but universally reported. The quality of life to price ratio is genuinely high across every dimension simultaneously. The food is excellent. The nature is extraordinary. The people are warm. The infrastructure works. In some cheap destinations, low price means an obvious compromise somewhere. In the quality of housing, in food standards, in safety, in internet reliability. In North Macedonia, that compromise is remarkably hard to find. The timing argument here is the same one that was made about Korea a decade ago, about Montenegro 5 years ago, about Albania 3 years ago, and all of those predictions proved accurate. Mass tourism has not fully arrived in North Macedonia yet. The international attention is still building. The window where $1,000 a month buys a genuinely exceptional life is still open.
Remote workers who've relocated here talk about a specific freedom that comes from having your core expenses covered by a fraction of your income. When rent is €300 and food costs €200 a month, a €600 monthly freelance client doesn't just cover the basics, it covers everything. That financial breathing room changes how you work, what you work on, and how much creative and entrepreneurial risk you're willing to take. North Macedonia is also progressing steadily on a path toward deeper European integration, and anyone paying attention to what that process has done to costs and property values in neighboring countries understands what that trajectory means for the current moment. $1,000 a month in North Macedonia isn't a survival budget. It's a lifestyle most people in Western Europe would genuinely trade their current situation for. Rent, €250 to €450 per month. Full restaurant meal, €6 to €7. Coffee, $1.20. Estimated $1,000 per month lifestyle? Check. High quality of life with genuine savings. Country 4. Romania. Romania is what happens when a country upgrades faster than the world's perception of it can keep up. And in 2026, that gap between what Romania actually is and what most people outside Europe still assume it is one of the most quietly significant financial opportunities on the continent. Walk through the medieval center of Cluj-Napoca on a Thursday evening. The streets are full of people. The cafes are packed. There are co-working spaces that look like they were designed in Berlin. There's a startup ecosystem that's producing software companies getting acquired by Silicon Valley firms. The internet, and this is the detail that consistently shocks people most, is among the fastest in the entire European Union. Not fast for Eastern Europe, actually among the fastest on the continent, full stop. The kind of speeds that matter when your income depends on a stable connection.
Cluj feels like Prague 15 years ago, before the stag parties arrived and rents tripled, and the affordability window closed permanently. Except Cluj has something Prague didn't. It's inside the EU already, which means EU protections, EU standard infrastructure, EU freedom of movement for Europeans, and modern healthcare that meets European standards. The stability is already there. The costs just haven't caught up yet. A modern apartment in Cluj or Brasov rents for €400 to €700 a month. In Sibiu, one of the most beautiful medieval cities in Central Europe, genuinely stunning, the kind of place that gets used as a filming location for period dramas, rents are even lower. Groceries, restaurants, gyms, transport, every category runs dramatically cheaper than Germany, France, or the Netherlands. Expats moving here consistently describe cutting their monthly expenses nearly in half without feeling like they gave up anything meaningful. Romania doesn't feel cheap in the way that registers as compromise. It feels efficient, like the country quietly got its act together while the rest of the world was looking somewhere else.
The opportunity angle here is as concrete as it gets.
Foreigners in Romania right now are building software development careers, AI startups, cybersecurity consultancies, digital marketing agencies, and e-commerce businesses, and doing it with operating costs that are a fraction of what the same business would require in London, Amsterdam, or Berlin. Cluj specifically has attracted a serious concentration of entrepreneurs precisely because the talent pool is sophisticated, the infrastructure is genuinely excellent, and the cost structure makes building sustainable from day one, rather than burning runway just to exist. Some people move to Romania to extend their financial runway, to buy themselves extra years of building time that $1,000 a month in London or Paris simply wouldn't allow. Others are buying property now, watching the same transformation that Poland went through a decade ago beginning to take shape, understanding what that trajectory means for values over the next 10 years.
$1,000 a month in Romania, particularly in Cluj or Brașov, doesn't just cover a comfortable life. It positions you inside a country that is, by almost every meaningful metric, in the process of becoming something significantly more expensive and significantly more internationally recognized than it is today. The question isn't whether that transformation is coming, it's whether you arrive before or after it does. Rent, 400 to 700 euros per month. Monthly groceries, dramatically cheaper than Western Europe. Internet speeds, among fastest in the EU. Estimated $1,000 per month lifestyle? Check. Comfortable, plus strategic financial positioning. Here's what connects all four of these countries. None of them are asking you to give something up. This isn't a video about living cheaply by lowering your standards. Georgia, Albania, North Macedonia, Romania, in all four places, $1,000 a month doesn't buy you a compromise. It buys you a life, a real one, with a proper apartment, good food, a social life, time to build something, and money left over at the end of the month. The people moving to these countries right now aren't doing it because they ran out of options. They're doing it because they did the math, and the math changed how they thought about everything. When your rent drops from $1,800 to $400, something shifts. You stop working to cover your costs and start working towards something. The financial pressure that drives most of the bad decisions people make about their careers, taking the wrong job, staying in a city they hate, burning out chasing a salary that just barely covers the life that salary requires, that pressure disappears, or at least becomes manageable. That is what these four countries are actually offering, not just cheap rent, a completely different relationship with money, with work, and with what's actually possible. If this video made you look at any of these countries differently, hit like and subscribe. We're covering a lot more of this. And drop a comment. Which of these four would you consider? Or if you've already made a move like this, tell us how it changed things. I read every single one. See you in the next one. Peace.